Hey guys, Mo here, and welcome back to episode 3 of my Java tutorial. And today we're going to be going over logic operators. As you can see, I've got three integers defined at the top here, x, y, and z. First thing we're going to be going over is the if statement. If statement basically is has two two or three, depending on how you want to use it, bodies of code. The first one is the run code, kind of, I guess. So if this right here is correct, then this will run. If it's not correct, the else will run. And if this right here is correct, then this will run. This is the else if. Let me explain that in a second. So if x is equal to 1, then, which it is, it will print out x is 1. If x is equal to 2, because that's the end of that, and then I put else if, so that's checking for another one. If that's equal, then it will print that. If it's not either, if it's not going to be either of these two, then it's going to be else. So anything else will go here. So that's the first one. If we run it, it is going to, oops, gotta right click run, because yeah, okay. So x is 1. Moving on, we have the while statement. Now, while statement is basically a loop, so it's the while loop. It's checking when this is true, it will run. When it's false, it's not. So when y is less than z, y is 0, z is 10. And then it's basically going to do all the stuff in here. So system out print line, x is not equal to I is not, or it's supposed to be y is not equal to x yet. And then y plus plus, which we covered in last episode, which is going to increase, or the episode before, no, last episode, which is going to increase it by 1 every time it loops through. So now it will do that 10 times, and then it's done. Moving on, we had to fix this too. This is the do while, which is basically the exact same, but you put do and then while at the end. And do, basically what that means is that it's going to do the code first, and then it's going to check. So very slight difference. So that's why it runs 20 times here. It runs this 20 times here, and then, or maybe 21, I don't know. And then last, we got 2 or 3 more. The next one is the for loop, which is a bit more complicated, but basically, there's another way to use this, but it's a bit more complicated. I'm just going to be showing you this way. You define an integer, set it to 0, or actually you don't have to set it to 0, whatever you want, and then semicolon, I, and then you're checking for a statement, so I is less than z, and then you're going to do I plus plus, which is the iterator. And you could probably do I plus equals 5 if you wanted to, or I minus minus, and then in here this will get run. So it's just kind of a more compact version of this right here with the defining in it as well. Moving on, we have the switch statement, which basically you type in switch the variable you want to be checking for, which is x, and then case 1. You want to put the number 1, so when x is equal to 1, then that means that, basically that means that it will run this code, which is going to be x is 1, and then you want to type in break after, so that it doesn't keep running the rest of the code. Case 2, so when x is equal to 2, and actually if you put, like, for instance, a, like that would be when x is equal to a. So that's how that works. But we'll leave it as 2. Basically, and then system out, same thing, just with number 2. And then default, which if none of them are correct, it will do the default. X is not 1 or 2, break. So x is 1. So now, if we change this to 3, it says x is not 1 or 2. and then we're moving on to the we're moving on to the try, catch, and try finally. Try catch is basically it's not a to logic operation. It's kind of off, but what it is it runs with a code in the try block. If there's an error or an exception, not an error, that will not run. That doesn't help that problem. But if there's an exception, like for instance, I wanted to divide by 0, so let's say I wanted to y is 0, so let's say go x divided by 0 even. Not a statement. X y equals that. Okay, that's valid. Now the problem here is it will give us an exception. Yeah, it gives an exception. See, it doesn't just crash. It gives us an actual exception, and this is how it works. You just type in catch exception E, and if you know the exception you're looking for, you write in, like for instance, you could do IO exception, or there's a bunch of different types of exception, and then E, and then E.print stack trace basically just prints the where the exception kind of originates. And you have the same thing with try finally, but the finally code gets run no matter what. So as you can see, something went wrong. Even though something didn't go wrong, it still went wrong. And you can see up here the arithmetic exception. So we could have put arithmetic exception there, and that would have worked as well. And that, yeah, it works a little bit better because now it's more pinpointing it. So that's about it for this episode, and hope you guys all enjoyed this episode of Java tutorial, or whatever, this Java tutorial, and I'll see you guys all later.